And for those of y'all that don't know this, Hannah Polling is the case which made international news in 2008 when it was announced that the government, HHS, had conceded that she is autistic as a result of a vaccine injury. As Paul Harvey would say, this is the rest of the story. What people don't know is, I contend, the government conceded the polling case as a tactical decision and procedural maneuver to conceal critical material evidence of how vaccines cause autism. Specifically, the expert witness for the government wrote an opinion which expresses not only that Hannah Polling is autistic as the result of a vaccine injury, but he explained how vaccines cause autism. So let me explain what I call the Zimmerman issue. Dr. Zimmerman, one of the top neurologists in the country, the first opinion he wrote was against Michelle Cedillo. He wrote it for HHS, and in that opinion he stated, quote, "There is no scientific basis for a connection between measles, mumps, rubella, MMR vaccine, or mercury intoxication in autism." He further wrote, "There is no sound evidence to support a causative relationship with exposure to both or either MMR and or mercury." Now this opinion the government used to deny compensation to the 5,000 cases that were pending in the omnibus proceeding. They even quoted from it during the closing arguments in my son's case. However, Dr. Zimmerman wrote a second contradictory opinion which explains, again, that Hannah Polling is autistic as the result of a vaccine injury, and more importantly, how vaccines cause autism. So what did the government do? One expert, two opinions. They used the first opinion, and they concealed the second. And it was the same government officials who relied upon Dr. Zimmerman's first opinion as evidence in the omnibus proceeding that conceded the case in Hannah Polling and concealed the evidence. Further, they did this despite the fact they were in possession of Dr. Zimmerman's second opinion. The bottom line is that during the omnibus autism proceeding, the United States Department of Justice, representing the United States Department of Health and Human Services, willfully and intentionally concealed critical material evidence of how vaccines cause autism. Then, the same government attorney that signed the documents conceding Hannah Polling's case and procedurally concealing the evidence, years later, when it finally got to the Court of Appeals, she represented to the Court of Appeals, in essence, that this evidence did not exist. Let me put that in perspective for you. If I did to a criminal in a court of law what the United States Department of Justice did to vaccine-injured children in this so-called vaccine court, I would be disbarred and I would be facing criminal charges. Now, the government never intended for the American people to know about the Polling case, and they fought hard to keep it concealed, but it leaked out. But when it leaked out, the government, they tried to hide behind the technical terminology. What they said was, well, Hannah Polling's condition, it's different from everybody else. It's not autism, it's regressive encephalopathy with features of autism spectrum disorder. Well, there's a problem with that. There's two. The first is, that's just semantics. If you have features of autism, that's what autism is. Characteristics or symptoms. However, and this is how I figured this out, was my son was also a patient of the same Dr. Zimmerman. Way back in 2002, I took my son, was very fortunate, with my parents' help. I got to see the top neurologist in the country, or one of them, and he made word for word the exact same neurological diagnosis as Hannah Polling's, regressive encephalopathy with features of autism spectrum disorder. Now, after the Polling case came to light, the parents of Hannah Polling filed a motion for complete transparency. The Pollings wanted to help other children. They wanted to make their records public. They wanted to help other people, because I truly believe that to understand how vaccines cause autism, the case of Hannah Polling is critical to understanding that. HHS and the Department of Justice, they opposed that motion for complete transparency. Well, thank God for whistleblowers. I was eventually able to obtain some of the documents, one of which is Dr. Zimmerman's written opinion, which and I'll clarify, in the opinion, he's talking about her residual seizure disorder, but in that opinion, he clearly explains that she, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that she is autistic, and autistic as the result of a vaccine injury. And he explains how vaccines cause autism. That 2-page document is critical to ending the autism epidemic. And the United States Department of Justice and the United States Department of Health and Human Services concealed it. I want to make a clarification. The pollings did not do anything wrong at all. For that matter, I don't contend Dr. Zimmerman did anything wrong. He's an expert in a highly developing and rapidly developing field of medicine. He's allowed to change his opinion. But what is wrong is for the United States government, when faced with one expert with 2 opinions, use the opinion which is favorable and conceal the one that's not. Especially when you consider the entire purpose of this proceeding was to determine if vaccines can cause autism, and if so, under what conditions. Well, the government's expert witness in neurology put in writing, yes, vaccines cause autism. Here's how vaccines cause autism. And the Department of Justice and HHS concealed it.